Puberty 2, Revenge of the Puberty.
Remember all that hair you didn't get? You got it now, motherfucker. Hey, I'm Blake.
And I'm Dave.
And this is First Prize Films, the spookiest podcast, where we each select a genre-specific movie separated by at least a decade and pit them against each other to find out which film, Dave, wins the coveted title of First Prize. Can you tell us what that means?
Yeah, so it means about the same as the letter T in the word tsunami. It's unnecessary. So today we are turning into monsters with these Universal monster movies.
It is Halloween, Dave.
It is
Halloween. It's time. Finally.
I'm basically going to be talking about this movie as if it's just Halloween.
The movie.
No.
I'm confused already.
Let me rewind. So I'm going to be talking about this movie as if I'm talking about the holiday Halloween.
Okay. It's
Didn't
still
help at all.
weird.
Yeah.
No, I don't get it.
Cool, moving on. So I made Blake watch The Wolfman, a movie where a guy deals with one fortune teller and now he's a fucking werewolf.
And I made Dave watch 1931's Frankenstein, the most accurate portrayal of what happens when you lose all your friends, decide to make your own, but it still ends up hating you. So it is Halloween, the spookiest time of the year, and we decided to go with Universal monster movies.
Right.
For me, I picked Frankenstein, 1931, but I want to know why you picked The Wolfman.
Well, because I wanted to do something that was equally as OG, you know? And like something like Van Helsing doesn't really count, like Dracula, not really, you know? So I just IMDb'd old-ass horror movies, and I found The Wolfman, and I said, that looks cool.
So Universal monsters aren't really a genre per se.
No.
It's its own category. But we did want to take it back. We talk a lot about other older movies for sure, but this is really going back because these movies have their own tone and kind of atmosphere that I think deserve its own little subsection, its own conversation.
Yeah, I think like old scary movies could be definitely their own thing, but I think this could still like be in the same genre as like newer like monster movies.
Yeah, no, they could, but they also work as their own subset.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. Now, I've seen both of these movies before, but it's been a long time, and I've never seen them in crystal clear HD like we got to see, which was a really fun experience. I enjoyed this a lot.
Yeah, I did too, actually. I thought it was going to be like, oh man, we're going to have to deal with like old ass graphics and old ass acting, and it felt like it could have been filmed today with just black and white.
Yeah, I mean, there's some dated stuff about them, of course, but they do hold up relatively well as entertainment. I'm not going to lie. I was a little skeptical first, too.
Yeah, I think I'm just too excited. So let's just get into it.
It's fine, you know, and we'll get to it fast because these movies are only like an hour and 5 minutes each.
Right.
So we'll probably speed through this pretty quickly. But yes, let's get on to it. Let's talk about The Wolfman, Dave.
Let's fucking do it!
Movie 1, The Wolfman, 1941.
All right, Dave, if you could give us the synopsis for 1941's The Wolfman.
I will do my best.
After returning to the family home where his dad is the only British person in town, Larry basically stalks a woman before turning into a werewolf and immediately has a lust for blood. Will he get the girl? Will he overcome his werewolf side? Will he be a good boy and get some treats?
So after we see every fucking character and the actors playing them on screen, we open to someone opening an encyclopedia to give us some on-screen text.
There's a lot going on here really quick. First off, the bad sitcom intro. It's like the Dick Van Dyke Show or something. Jesus Christ.
Right.
This is also my favorite kind of intro, you know, the one where I have to fucking read.
Talbot Castle, Mr. Larry.
Now we have Larry Talbot, played by Lon Chaney Jr., whoever the fuck that is.
He's famous. Don't be whoever the fuck that is with me. This man is famous.
So whoever the fuck that is in a limo with his chauffeur driving a convertible with no fucking windshield because the 40s were wild.
Less bugs, Dave.
Or more bugs and teeth. Who knows?
Welcome home, Larry.
I'm mighty glad to be here, Father.
Then we see them pull up to the massive Talbot Castle as Larry is greeted outside by his father, who he looks nothing like, aside from being a foot taller than. And they hold their handshake all the way inside, which has no reason to make me as uncomfortable as it fucking did.
Dude, everything has made me uncomfortable so far. The reading, the intro, the hand-holding with your dad. And not to be classist here, but how many Larrys do you know that live in a castle?
Larrys are not allowed to be rich.
The only Larry I knew thought he was dating Shania Twain and was buried in a cowboy suit, so it's not boding well for Larry's.
Is he friends with Curly and Mo?
Yep.
So the dad guilt trips the fuck out of Larry for only coming back around after his brother died. Guilt trips.
Ain't it like a dad for you to do what they finally want and they still guilt trip the shit out of you? Love it.
What do we got there?
It's from London, sir. I think it's a new part for the telescope.
Oh, it's coming along, Larry.
So before Larry helps his dad finish putting together a telescope, because obviously the rich people get bored and want to literally look down on the poor people, Larry tests out the telescope by creeping on the poor people in town.
Dude, I'm not saying I called Larry being a peeping Tom, but his face isn't doing him any favors either.
No. Speaking of creeping, Larry sees a beautiful woman in her bedroom window and not only creeps on her, figures out where she lives. Maybe that's why he's been forced to come home, because he got in trouble for stalking.
This isn't looking good for Larry. I'm just throwing that out there.
And just to prove me right, he gets all dressed up and shows up at her work and starts harassing her like a horny teenager with balls of steel and tells her he's looking for a pair of earrings to gift. But not just any earrings, Blake.
What I'm really looking for is something half-moon shaped with spangles on it, golden.
I'm sorry, we haven't any like that just now.
Oh, yes, you have. Don't you remember? On your dressing table up in your room.
Dude, the first rule of picking up women is to not tell them you've been looking at them through their windows.
So then the lady, or Gwen, played by who cares, no one would know, is like me. Well, she's like, well, maybe my father should help you. And Larry backpedals faster than the weather changes in Florida and is like, oh, maybe I'll buy this cane instead.
Just the casual strolling around cane.
Sure. After Larry explains away his stalkerness, Gwen helps him pick out a cane. And when he finds one with a wolf and star on it, he asks, what does that mean?
I thought you said you were psychic.
Oh, I am, but this is only wood and silver, and it hasn't blue eyes.
Larry is about as smooth as a pile of gravel.
This scene goes on way too long.
Yeah.
With the fact that Gwen is still talking to this guy.
The 40s. Larry is incensed that the cane is $15, which I assume is the price of a whole car in the 40s. And she explains that the cane is a pentagram, which is the sign of a werewolf. And because all of Larry's blood is currently in his loins, Gwen has to explain what werewolf is to him, like a student who didn't pay attention the whole semester.
Werewolf? What's that?
Well, that's a human being who at certain times of the year changes into a wolf.
She tells him that werewolves were marked with a pentagram and that they see them in the palm of the next victim's hand. Wait, are werewolves going around inspecting palms like an overly hairy palm reader?
We're going to get to the palm reading, Dave.
So Larry decides now is the best time to ask Gwen out, in the form of telling Gwen that they're going for a walk tonight.
No.
See you at 8.
No.
That gummit, Larry. No means no. In the 40s, it should have meant that, but I don't know.
No. You're right. It's the 40s. No means keep fucking asking me and then make me feel so bad that I end up going on a date with you anyway against my will.
Tracks.
Yes, they're fortune tellers. Pass through here every autumn.
After we see a caravan of their words not mine gypsies roll on by their annual fall trip through the town, which feels like a very weird travel pattern, but who am I? Larry is asking his dad about the whole werewolf thing, like a nervous child does, so what's a werewolf,
It's you.
Why, of course. Who did you expect?
I told you I couldn't go out with you.
And yet you wore those earrings that I like.
We cut to 8 p.m. and Larry and Gwen meet up. Remember when she said no and he said, well, I'll see you at 8 anyway?
It's the 40s.
Anyway, she tells him yet again that she can't go out with him, and he goes,
Oh, come on. I don't want to go alone. I'm really afraid of the dark.
bitch, you're like 6'5". Why you even gotta con a woman into going with you?
You're 6'5" and you own the town.
Right.
Jenny.
So now, Gwen calls out to Jenny, who, is, I guess, just creepily waiting inside for this exact moment.
I'm glad Jenny was here. Gwen was like, I'm not going alone with this fucking weirdo who buys canes randomly.
And then Jenny comes out, and Gwen is like, all right, all three of us will go. And Larry does the disappointed little kid thing of, oh, okay then.
He legit acts like a child.
He totally does.
If I have to, this is the way it's gonna go, fine.
And you know what, Blake? Off they go, into the woods like the dumbass white people they are.
I'm just saying, whatever happens to Larry, I don't care.
Oh, look. Oh, wolfbane.
So on the way to the fortune tellers, they find wolfsbane, and Jenny picks some because on the nose wasn't a thing in the 40s, I guess. Anyway, Jenny goes to get her fortune told by a guy with a badass twirly mustache, and at the same time, creepy old fortune teller lady eyes Larry and Gwen.
But also the guy doing the fortune telling, his name's Bella, who's also played by Bela Lugosi, who 10 years beforehand played the original Dracula.
Oh.
Trivia!
So Larry convinces Gwen to now take a walk in the woods, which is the beginning of any good murder mystery novel. And after revealing that he actually saw Gwen with a telescope...
But it's only fair to tell you I'm engaged. I'm going to be married very soon. In fact, I really shouldn't be here.
Oh, really? So what? You're just trying to get out of your engagement by being on the first page of the Small Town Chronicle as a woman murdered in the woods?
Also, why'd you let it get this far? You let him get you alone in the spooky woods with the fog and shit. He's getting close to your lips, and you're like, oh, by the way, I'm engaged.
What's the matter?
Back with Jenny getting her fortune told, Bela, the, mustache guy.
Dracula, go on.
He gets as dramatic as a high school actor in the school's production of West Side Story before we see a pentagram on his forehead. You know, when he pulls his hair out of his forehead for no fucking reason because his hair's not long enough for it. Anyway. And then he sees a pentagram on Jenny's palm and freaks out. He's like, I'm not really feeling it tonight. Maybe my powers will be stronger tomorrow. Which honestly is what I would fucking do if I was a fortune teller.
Get out of here. Right. Wait, leave the money, but get out of here.
Exactly. Both Bela and Jenny freak out, and he sends her running off into the woods when... And Larry to the rescue! / leave Gwen by herself in the woods. And he finds Jenny's lifeless body being tossed around like a rag doll by the wolf, who he beats to death with his werewolf cane thing before tiring out like me when I'm coming off a caffeine buzz and laying down for an unwilling nap.
I'm glad Larry pulled that wolf off of Jenny, and I'm also glad he got bit. He's getting a little too big for his britches up in here.
Master Larry, what's happening?
He was bitten by a wolf.
A wolf?
And next thing you know, Gwen and the lady fortune teller help Larry into Talbot Castle like a frat boy who got too drunk at the neighbor's book club while telling everyone that a wolf bit him. And some random townsperson also just waltzes into Talbot Castle to tell Constable Paul that Jenny was murdered too.
Wolf? Gypsy woman? Murder? What is this?
Constable Seinfeld over here. Wolves?
What's with all these murders? So Constable Paul takes a team out to inspect Jenny's dead body, and suddenly, one dude with a hound goes all the way to, let me check my notes here, yes, the other side of the tree to find the wolf. Well, actually, it's Bela, and Larry is a murderer now.
Captain Montford, here, sir. It's the gypsy who passed through town this afternoon.
The doctor, who is there for some reason, says that Bela was killed by heavy blows with a sharp instrument. Now, I should mention, they're in the woods in the middle of the night, and this guy knows what usually takes a whole-ass autopsy to find out. Either he's got the eyes of a cat, or he watched Larry kill Bela from the bushes.
Oh, I think we have an accomplice.
Is this your stick? Well, of course. That's the one I killed the wolf with.
Larry, Bela the gypsy was killed last night. They found your stick by the body.
So the next morning, Larry is questioned by his dad, Dr. Lloyd, and Constable Paul about his werewolf cane that they found at the crime scene, while he lays on the bed like a middle schooler being confronted by his parents for drawing a dick on the chalkboard at school.
I know the feeling. Go on.
They tell him they found the cane near Bela, and after some back and forth, Larry tries to prove that it was a wolf and not Bela that he beat to death with the cane by showing his bite, only...
That's funny. Must have healed up.
Larry's dad says that there was blood on him, and the doctor, who is brilliant, by the way, suggests that maybe shock caused him to bleed that blood. So this doctor's good.
Yeah, I'm sure he's probably a medical doctor.
Definitely. He made his own credentials.
It just says, I am a doctor on
his Gutenberg printing press.
You tell me his coat was bloody when the two women brought him in. Surely a wound can't heal overnight.
So now the dad, Dr. Lloyd, and Constable Paul are talking about Larry behind his back like they're in the show Gossip Girls. But basically, the dad is trying to sweep everything under the rug.
You policemen are always in such a hurry, as if dead men hadn't all eternity.
But good point, actually.
He's not wrong.
It's the gypsy fortune teller. And the man that killed him.
We're watching as some people move Bela's casket, and everyone is just gawking at Larry like he's a semi-trailer that tipped over on the highway.
Yeah, and Larry's just casually strolling around town with a murder weapon. Whipping it around like he's in a fucking ticker tape break? Not really.
But now, the lady fortune teller and a priest are arguing about how to bury Bela while Larry hides around the corner like that coworker who is always tattling on everyone.
That sounds like a bad joke setup. The fortune teller and the, and the priest.
And after the priest leaves in disgust, the lady fortune teller opens the casket and rattles off some fortune teller prayer that ends with,
"Your suffering is over, Bela, my son."
We fade to Gwen talking with her father before Jenny's mother and her angry Karen mob storm into the store to confront Gwen's father. They're demanding she come out because they blame her for Jenny being killed before Larry comes in.
I'll tell you what she was doing.
All right, tell me.
Come on, speak up. What was it?
And the Karen mob scurries out of the store like Elon Musk running from taxes.
Larry is intimidating. He's still carrying the murder weapon, so again, I'd be scared of him too.
And he's 8'9". So after Larry goes to talk to Gwen and try and console her, Larry and us get to meet Frank, Gwen's fiance, and his annoying ass dog that won't stop barking at Larry.
Larry, this is Frank Andrews.
Quiet.
Listen to your dog, Frank. Larry's a sex pervert and a fucking wolf.
Anyway, Larry immediately leaves after Frank leaves his handshake hanging, you know, like a dick. And Frank warns Gwen to be careful because he's totally not jealous at all.
Well, there's something very tragic about that man. I'm sure that nothing but harm will come to you through him.
Now we're at the fortune teller's wake, complete with games, dancing, and music, which feels like they took Celebration of Life literally. Frank challenges Larry to one of those like shooting games where Larry is getting hit after hit before the figure of a wolf pops up. And he freezes. And like a snarky ass teenager, Frank goes,
Go ahead and shoot before he bites you.
I'm not going to say that it was a good zinger, but I'm not going to deny it either.
Frank wrote that down before he showed up for this.
You've been a long while coming,
I'm not buying anything.
and I am not selling anything. Go inside.
Then after Larry sulks off into the woods, because clearly that's his happy place, he is stopped by the lady fortune teller, and she makes him go into her tent. She gives him a pentagram pendant to protect him after telling him that Bela was a werewolf, and werewolves can only be killed by a silver bullet, or a silver knife, or a stick with a silver handle. And that last one feels very added on. She tells him that whoever is bitten by a werewolf and lives becomes a werewolf himself. Sounds like an MLM. So
This is 100% an MLM.
So Constable Paul watches as Larry leaves the lady fortune teller's tent and then just starts a chain reaction of gossip that makes the entire encampment of fortune tellers pack up and leave like underage kids running after someone yells, "Cops!" And at the same time, Larry runs into Gwen, who had a fight with Frank, apparently, and he tells her,
I just saw the old gypsy woman. She said that I was a werewolf.
With the pentagram.
That's a charm. I want you to have it. It'll protect you.
he just gives the pendant away to her.
I have so many questions about this like pendant / charm thing. If it did work, why the fuck did Bela turn into a werewolf? And then why would Larry, who's definitely kind of believing he has something involved in it, immediately gives it away?
He just really wants to get laid. I don't know.
I mean, the man must not have nutted in a while, and I get it, bro. I get it, but like,
Yeah,
come
same.
on, self-preservation. You say yes, same.
I never accept a present without giving something in return. Here's a penny.
That isn't enough.
Larry tries to kiss Gwen. And she almost lets him, like a floozy, but they're interrupted by a tent being taken down in a tizzy. Do you like my attempt at 40s lingo?
I was like, did you just call her a floozy?
Yeah.
Holy shit,
Yeah.
dude. I can't believe Larry's like on the precipice of like mental collapse, wondering what's going to happen with him. But then Gwen shows up in the forest. He's like, hey, baby.
Well, the gypsies are all leaving.
I must go too.
But Gwen!
So Gwen uses this as an excuse to get the fuck out of there.
Good.
After we see Larry having some kind of a mental break with all these scary ass images flashing through his head.
I love this, by the way. I love this imagery.
Yeah, it was
looks
really
really
cool.
cool. It's a cool montage.
Hey, what's all the excitement? There's a werewolf in camp.
We watch as Larry undresses in his room before noticing extra hair growing on his legs because, well, maybe he's just European.
I've had this same exact moment myself. I look down, I'm like, holy shit.
Second puberty!
So puberty part 2. It's way worse this time.
But no, Blake. He's in fact turning into a werewolf!
Oh my gosh. He sure as fuck doesn't look like the wolf that bit him. He looks like a man who was tarred, but the town like ran out of feathers, so they dipped him in the barber's hair clippings they found on the floor. Just like rolled him around a little bit.
So now Larry the werewolf, or the Lairwolf.
Oh, Dave, I hate you so much.
You are welcome. So after the Lairwolf attacks and kills the man burying Bela, howling so loud the people back in the town can hear it, Constable Paul, Dr. Lloyd, and a couple of randos are inspecting the murder scene.
Animal tracks. A wolf.
And then we cut to muddy paw prints, starting at Larry's window, going all the way to his bed where he lay passed out, like the morning after his first college rager.
Rip.
Larry wakes up to find his wound is now a fucking pentagram, proving my point that werewolfism is an MLM, and he sees the muddy paw prints that he scurries to wipe up with his sleeve. And as he gets to the window, he sees Constable Paul tracking the prints in the yard.
I heard people in the corridor, and is there anything wrong?
Richardson was killed last night, the gravedigger.
Now, Larry comes downstairs and asks his dad what all the hubbub is about. And his dad tells him about the tracks, and like a guilty kid trying to figure out just exactly how much trouble he's in, Larry asks,
A wolf? Where do you suppose a wolf came from?
and he does that like guilty glance around the room thing, you know, like he wants to get caught. So after Larry asks his dad what all this werewolf stuff is about, and is told that it's probably just schizophrenia, it's time for church.
Dude, I know Larry feels bad about probably killing the gravedigger guy, but he's walking around church looking guilty as shit.
Oh my God, right?
Like, everyone's already staring at you, and you're walking around like, oh no. Oh, buddy, this might have been me.
And just to prove those gossipy churchgoers right, after everyone is seated, they all turn to stare at Larry at the back of the church, and he panics like a murderer in church. And he hurries out. But now we're back at Talbot Castle, where somehow Dr. Lloyd, Constable Paul, the dad, and some other dude, they've beaten Larry back to the house. They're talking about the wolf and its tracks when Larry goes,
It isn't a wolf.
What do you mean?
It's a werewolf.
well, way to bury the fucking lead, Larry.
After all this werewolf talk from Larry, our detective here, Mr. Constable guy, should be asking way more questions instead of just being like, no, fuck you, Larry. I'm gonna go set some traps. Also, Larry, why didn't you volunteer to go set the traps? And then you know where the fucking traps were, Larry. What kind of a shitty werewolf are you?
You gotta remember, Blake, he's not a werewolf. He's a Lairwolf.
He's a fucking amateur is what he is.
All right, sir. Last one, huh?
So as Constable Paul goes off to set the traps, Dr. Lloyd tells Larry to go get some rest for some reason. And when Larry sulks off, Dr. Lloyd tells the dad that Larry is a sick man and that Larry has received a shock that has caused psychic maladjustment, whatever the fuck that means.
Listen to me, Dr. Lloyd. 5 generations of Talbots haven't been affected by this village. That boy stays here.
And after Dr. Lloyd and the dad have an argument about what to do with Larry, ultimately settling on doing nothing at all, we see Frank helping Constable Paul set the traps, and the Lairwolf is back somehow.
Woo! It's not explained.
He steps directly into a trap as men with lanterns and a dog walk through the woods.
I fucking warned you, Larry.
Werewolves may be vicious, but they're blind as shit. The Lairwolf tuckers himself out from just rolling around, I guess.
From werewolfing.
And he passes out before the lady fortune teller, who just happens to be in the woods, stumbles upon him.
The way you walk is thorny, through no fault of your own.
She waves her hand over him and chants another fortune teller prayer thing, making Larry turn back into himself, which has to be the only time where thoughts and prayers have worked. When he wakes up, he pulls himself free of the trap and takes off.
Hello there! Stop! Come here!
Now the men, dressed in coats and scarves and hats, see him dressed in just a shirt and pants, call him over and are like, bro, what the fuck are you doing out here? And Larry goes,
The same thing that you are, of course, hunting.
and then he just limps off deeper into the woods like a crackhead waking up from an almost OD.
Dude, he's straight up. They're like, what are you doing? He's like, I'm fine. I'm just out here looking for the wolf. Shit. And he takes off like a bat out of hell, just limping his ass through the forest.
Gwen, I'm going away.
So then Larry does limp his way to Gwen's window. Gwen wakes up and Larry tells her that he's going away, and she says, let me go with you. Girl, you don't even know him, and you're engaged. How bad is your life? So then Larry is like,
You wouldn't want to run away with a murderer, would you?
Oh, Larry, you're not. You know you're not.
I killed Baylor. I killed Richardson. If I stay around here much longer, you can't tell who's going to be next.
and of course, now Larry sees a pentagram on Gwen's palm because being hit over the head with the plotline makes us understand it a lot better.
Dude, I'm saying though, why in the actual fuck would Gwen want to be with Larry? How was this decision earned?
Here's my theory.
Yeah.
Larry's a lot taller than Frank.
Oh no, you're going with the nice guy justification.
No, I'm going with Larry's probably got a bigger dick justification.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. How tight were his pants?
Rabbit hole. We have to move on.
Okay. Let's get back on track here.
Father, I'm going with Larry.
No, it's no use.
So then Larry storms out of the store because he's tired of having his dick ogled at. And he's caught by his dad as he goes to leave the castle because that's where he went back to. And he tells his dad that he's the werewolf and shows him the pentagram on his chest. And this dumbass goes,
That scar could be made by most any animal.
Sir, excuse you? The only animal that could make that mark is a starfish. You see what I did there?
Oh, God. Larry's dad really believes that shit he just said. Well, any animal. Starfish or bust, buddy.
So anyway, the dad snaps and yells at Larry about the lady fortune teller and then straps him to a chair like he's about to get electrocuted to death, which feels like an overreaction or an underreaction. I don't know. I haven't decided yet.
Everybody sucks. I don't care.
Dad, take the cane with you.
What do I want with a cane?
Just take it with you.
So Larry tells the dad to take his cane with him when he goes out to help the men hunt the werewolf, and his dad obliges.
His dad already thinks he's crazy, but his dad's like, I'll bring my son's murder weapon with me out into the forest.
So next thing you know, we're out with the dad and the hunters when he wanders off into the woods and into the fortune teller lady who is on her horse cart thing with a lantern because aside from being stubborn, the dad is also blind.
You're the gypsy's been filling his mind with this werewolf nonsense.
Nonsense, Sir John.
Yes, you've been preying on his gullibility with your witches' tales.
But you fixed him, didn't you, Sir John?
Which feels like the 1940s fortune teller version of Bless Your Heart.
She's my favorite character.
Now the men are back in a tizzy because the werewolf is loose.
Fucking tizzy.
And Gwen is here because apparently she has no sense of danger. Before the men can find the werewolf, he finds Gwen and he's about to attack when the dad comes to the rescue. He comes in swinging the silver cane like a roided out baseball player. They wrestle around before the tiny dad gets the upper hand on a fucking werewolf and beats him to death with a stick. And then the fucking lady fortune teller appears out of the fog and does her weird prayer thing.
The way you walked was thorny, through no fault of your own. But as the rain enters the soil, the river enters the sea. So tears ran to a predestined end. Your suffering is over. Now you will find peace for eternity.
And the werewolf transforms back into Larry right in front of his dad's eyes. The second time thoughts and prayers have worked. Well, sort of, because he's still dead.
And she just nopes the fuck out of there. She's done.
And then the rest of the men run onto the scene to find the dad sitting over Larry like he's a bowl of ramen that was just spilled into the sink. And Frank finds Gwen as she comes to. Constable Paul says to the dad,
The wolf must have attacked her and Larry came to the rescue. I'm sorry, Sir John.
And, roll credits, I guess. That was abrupt.
It just literally just ends. And the credits last all of like 6 seconds before the movie's just done. Yeah. This movie was done with itself quicker than we could be done with it.
Which I appreciated, if I'm being honest.
It sounded like a complaint? Definitely not.
Kind of think movies nowadays should take notes.
I agree. Bring back some of the classic stuff.
Right. When there's no more story left to tell, just turn it off.
Let us go home.
Take notes. How it ends. Honestly, I liked this movie a lot more than I thought I was gonna.
I do really like this. I like the atmosphere of it. The woods scenes were really cool. And it was just fun. Lots of cool old school filmmaking techniques.
Yeah.
According to the IMDb trivia, shooting lasted from October 27th to November 25th, 1941, and was released December 12th of the same year.
Holy shit.
But I did have fun with this movie. I really did enjoy it. And I'm definitely going to be watching these again again, both of these movies, and I want to watch more of the Universal monster movies that I've never seen because they are quick. They're kind of bite-sized.
Right.
But you still get a lot of atmosphere and a lot of cool things going on.
Yeah, you could do a twofer.
You could do a four-fer in the span of what we usually would take to watch 2 movies.
I guess that's a fair point. So let's trade in our fur for bolts and fucking stitches and move on to Frankenstein.
I just want to get electrocuted.
Movie 2, Frankenstein, 1931.
All right, Blake, we left the fur in the woods, okay? It's time for you to shock us with this next synopsis of Frankenstein.
When Henry Frankenstein, a totally stable genius, blends a few corpses into one giant weirdo, he uses electricity to bring it to life. After it kills his asshole assistant, Henry will have to stop the monster before it totally harshes the vibe on his wedding day.
How do you do?
So we open to a man in a tuxedo on a stage, and this isn't the movie yet, but Mr. Tuxedo here, he needed to tell us and warn us this movie is capital S scary.
I think it will thrill you. It may shock you. It might even horrify you.
Laying it on pretty thick.
A little bit,
bud, yeah. But this feels more like you're kind of preempting a shitty bedtime story. Anyway, he gives us a chance to give up on this movie before it even starts.
So if any of you feel that you do not care to subject your nerves to such a strain, now is your chance to, well...
Whatever. Get on with it.
Listen, honestly, what would you have done if I was like, listen, man, the guy gave me an out and I took it?
I wouldn't blame you. Finally, the movie starts, and we're treated to my favorite part of every movie, the credits.
Why are the ending credits at the beginning, Blake? Are we Benjamin Buttoning this movie?
This was a standard move at the time, but I still had to double check that the movie wasn't taunting me. So we're treated to the names of the main cast, all of whom I can confidently say are dead, but we're given our first mystery. For the credit of the monster, the screen just gives us a big question mark. And spoiler, not spoiler, it's Boris Karloff. He turns in the best performance in this movie. Now, 2 fucking hours later, we finally get our first shots of the movie, right? It's a funeral, Dave. Maybe mine, maybe yours. But either way, there's a literal skeleton with a sword in attendance.
And 2 creepy-ass dudes funeral crashing.
Well, we're getting there. The one thing that doesn't matter in this funeral scene, Dave, is the sad piece of shit who died. Because our main character is lurking around in the background with his sidekick. This is Henry Frankenstein and his assistant, Fritz.
Now, come on. Hurry, hurry.
But after sitting through the entire funeral and waiting for the gravedigger to fill in the hole, Henry and Fritz make their move. They gotta fuck that corpse.
Like, I get the practicality of, like, not wanting to harm somebody who's alive, but you do realize how much extra work you just created for yourself by waiting till the dude was finished digging and filling in the grave just to dig it back up.
The moon's rising. We've no time to lose.
In tandem with what you just said, I do have a couple notes here. 1, they could have just paid off the gravedigger to walk the fuck away. And 2, Henry is grave robbing in slacks.
Okay, but here's my question. Did they have anything but slacks in the 30s?
I don't know.
I'm going to say no.
He's just resting, waiting for a new life to come.
So that's weird. But these 2 resurrection men, they're not done yet, Dave. They have one more stop to make. The local gallows. There's just a dead guy literally hanging out in public. Different times,
well,
I guess.
Just to be clear, because you said it a little funny. He's not just hanging out. He's hanging out in public.
Yes, it's a gallows. He's literally hanging. This man is dead, swinging from a rope in public. I mean, you would think this would also be their first stop instead of waiting through an entire funeral ceremony. It's like the hanging man was like their dessert.
Yeah, it's their creme brulee.
Their dead brulee. Their
corpse brulee.
Corpse brulee. There we go. Henry tells Fritz,
climb up and cut the rope.
But Fritz says, no. Dude, you're freaked out by this? This is so inconsistent, it hurts my brain.
Also, why are you making the hunchback do the climbing? That seems unfair.
Henry's wearing his slacks.
Yeah, fair point.
He wore his grave robbing slacks, not his climbing slacks.
Can you imagine if you had to have slacks for literally every activity?
So Fritz cuts down the body, but there's a problem.
Is it all right? The neck's broken. The brain is useless. We must find another brain.
Do you mean for yourself? Because your brain isn't working so fucking well either, Henry.
Right.
Now we're off to Goldstadt Medical College, where Dr. Waldman gives a coincidental lecture on good brains versus bad brains with the help of a visual aid, 2 brains in a jar.
Yeah, hopefully there's not some sort of mix-up later.
Oh, no, I wonder. He says about the bad brain.
All of these degenerate characteristics check amazingly with the case history of the dead man before us, whose life was one of brutality, of violence, and murder.
Kind of makes me wonder what science would say about my brain. Sir, my God, come quick, it's full of pudding cups.
Thank you, gentlemen. The class is dismissed.
Now that class is over, Fritz sneaks into the room. He's after that spongy good brain, Dave. But if there's one thing you should know about Fritz, is that he has butterfingers. He dropped the good brain, but there's one other thing you should know about Fritz. He's a fucking idiot. Instead of abandoning ship, he just grabs the other jar, very clearly labeled abnormal brain.
He was like, thank my lucky stars, there's an extra brain right there.
All jarred up and waiting to go.
Also, why couldn't he just pick up the brain on the floor?
There's a lot of questions being asked here, Dave. It was tainted by the floor bacteria. All right, enough of this talk of brains and corpses and poor motor skills. We're getting to the emotional meat of the story. In a beautiful, luxurious home, we're introduced to 2 new characters, Victor and Elizabeth.
I'm so glad you've come.
What is it, Elizabeth? Well, you've heard from Henry.
Yes, the first word in 4 months.
Essentially, Elizabeth is Henry Frankenstein's fiancée, and Victor is his close friend. They're both concerned about Henry, but wait until they hear about the dead bodies.
Also, doesn't she say something about, oh, I wish I could go with you?
Yeah, something like that.
What is with the women in these movies trying to cheat on their fiancés? Harlots, I tell you.
To be fair, she's in a bad situation. She's got a grave robber in slacks on one hand, and then his best friend who seems pretty emotionally stable on the other hand. It's a hard choice.
Yeah.
I'm afraid. I've read this over and over again, but they're just words.
Anyway, Elizabeth got a letter from Henry, and it's concerning.
My work must come first, even before you. Prying eyes can't peer into my secret. What can he mean?
Let me translate for you. I, Henry Frankenstein, am a giant prick who's lost grasp on reality. Wait for me. The letter does go on, though, to give us a few more details.
I am living in an abandoned old watchtower. Only my assistant is here to help me with my experiments.
His experiments, as he's written, are leading him to a discovery so great he doubts his own sanity. And that makes 2 of us.
Also, he says something about he needs to create life. Well, then fucking make a baby, dude.
There's other ways that are less grave robby.
Oh, what can we do? Opha should be ill.
Now, don't worry. I'll go to Dr. Waldman, Henry's old professor in medical school. Perhaps he can tell me more about all this.
That's quite the assumption, but fine. Perhaps he could tell me anything about this. I have no fucking idea what's going on.
Me either.
But now, we're on the move, Dave. Elizabeth and Victor, they go to Dr. Waldman's office, which is full of exposed human skeletons. He has some insight about what Henry has been up to.
Herr Frankenstein was interested only in human life. First to destroy it, then recreate it. There you have his mad dream.
And you told nobody about this? Like the fucking cops, maybe? Instead of telling anybody, the 3 of them, Elizabeth, Victor, and Dr. Waldman, decide to trek up an ominous mountain to visit Henry's lab in the watchtower, which I'm kind of now seeing as a deliberate aesthetic choice to be weird and unwelcoming.
It is pretty creepy.
Inside the watchtower, Henry and Fritz, they rush around, they mix potions, and they get the electrodes ready for their experiment, which will bring this patchwork human to life. Fritz is nervous because, well, you know, the stitched up cadaver on the table and stuff, but Henry assures him it's all chill, man.
The brain of a dead man waiting to live again in a body I made with my own hands.
Made is a strong word for someone who borrowed their mom's sewing kit.
Also, this seems a bit impractical to stitch together a body out of, 15 different bodies. Maybe just pick 1 or 2 at the most.
I just wish Henry would live long enough to see the movie The Human Centipede.
Oh, no.
That is art.
Let's have one final test. Throw the switches.
Anyway, they decide to do one final test to juice this bad boy up, but something else comes up. There's a knock at the door. It's our 3 concerned travelers.
I would say knocking is the nice way of putting what they're doing. It sounds like they are trying to hammer the door down.
It's a big door, Dave. It's a big door.
It's Dr. Waldman, Fritz. You can't see it. Go away. Henry! Open the door!
Finally, Henry relents at the sight of his bride-to-be and lets them all in. Ever the charmer, Henry tells Elizabeth,
Oh, you're ill. What's the matter?
Nothing. Oh, can't you see I mustn't be disturbed? You'll ruin everything. My experiment is almost completed.
Yes, we'll get married once you're done being fucking annoying and leave me alone in my lab. Henry's friend Victor, he's had enough of this shit and he calls it like he sees it.
Henry, you're inhuman. You're crazy.
Finally, Henry responds.
Crazy, am I? We'll see whether I'm crazy or not.
That's the kind of thing someone who's not crazy says. Right?
It's in the Not Crazy Handbook. Page 1, baby. So Henry Frankenstein brings everyone upstairs while he preps the final stages of his experiment. Everyone watches in confusion as Henry's real doll is lifted up into the store.
No!
He's lifted up into the storm and then back down to the lab, and it's all really loud and pretty anticlimactic until it starts moving.
It's alive! It's alive!
Hey, that's exactly what my parents said when I was born.
Yeah, but I think they said it more in like a disappointed tone.
Henry's actually happy and didn't try to sneak out of the hospital.
Henry is well, but he's very busy. He said he would get in touch with you soon.
Now, I guess Victor and Elizabeth were just cool with all the crazy shit they just saw because we cut back to that beautiful home she started in. Turns out it's not her home, it's Baron Frankenstein's house. Henry's father. Is right. They're with him, and they have to explain what the hell is going on with Henry.
What's the matter with my son? What's he doing?
Completing his experiments, that's all.
There's another woman, and you're afraid to tell me.
I know these were different times, but this legit doesn't make any fucking sense.
Well, yeah.
Maybe the Baron can't cope with his son being a raging lunatic and a potential necrophiliac. Fine.
Oh, boy.
Actually, that's fair. I have no other points to make.
Okay.
But Baron Frankenstein, he's on a mission of his own now.
There is another woman, and I'm going to find her.
Now we're back at Henry's mountaintop dungeon lab, where Dr. Waldman continues to warn Henry of the big mistake he's made, specifically with the brain he's used.
It's a perfectly good brain, Doctor. It came from your own laboratory. The brain that was stolen from my laboratory was a criminal brain. Only evil can come of it.
That sounds like bad foreshadowing. Waldman continues.
You have created a monster and it will destroy you.
If you recall the story of my birth, Dave, this is exactly...
I believe in this monster, as you call it.
Either way, Henry doesn't give a shit and decides he wants to play with his monster a little more. The monster, played by Boris Karloff, enters the room backwards because he's an idiot, but he does turn to give us a dramatic reveal of his face.
Here he comes. Let's turn out the light.
And I do have to say, in all honesty, it's pretty spooky. The makeup looks really good.
Oh, yeah.
And fun fact here, the makeup was designed by Jack Pierce, who 10 years later went on to design the makeup for the Wolfman.
Oh, wow.
Keeping it all in the family.
Also, can I just say how I just realized how weird it is that Frankenstein's monster's head is flat?
He didn't get the best skull. He went to the human junkyard, and that's all they had left in stock. Pulled off this fucking dickhead who took a header out of his castle.
That's why it's flat.
Sit down. You see, it understands.
As the monster sits, Henry exposes it to the moonlight, and it entrances the monster. It causes a very distinct reaction.
Yeah, he's like a moth. Mothenstein.
I'll let it go.
Okay.
You know what else causes a distinct reaction in the monster, Dave?
Can I answer?
No, it's Fritz's dumbass running into the room with a flaming torch.
Why the fuck is Fritz running around with a torch?
He's stupid.
Frankenstein, where is it? Where is it?
The flame causes the monster to go apeshit and attack the crew. They wrestle it to the ground and tie it up in the cellar. The monster's chained up and losing his mind because he was born in a fucking watchtower against his will, and Fritz comes in to harass it for no reason.
Yeah, because the Hunchback is a fucking menace
to society. The monster looks really scared, and you can see the fear on its face. I found myself relating to this a lot. You know, I'm bad at taking direction, I'm clumsy as shit, and I'm scared of the light.
Also, your head is flat.
Oh, yeah. So later, off-screen, we hear Fritz screaming. Henry and Waldman run down to the cellar to find the monster has strung Fritz up by the neck. He's dead. And hell yeah, because Fritz sucks and he totally deserved it.
Yeah, I know that you have a propensity to root for human death, so...
It's kind of pretty true.
It's fine.
He hated Fritz. Fritz always tormented him.
Unfortunately, though, Waldman convinces Henry that they have to kill the monster, and they devise a really stupid plan.
We must overpower him first. Get me a hypodermic needle. It's murder. It's our only chance.
Is it murder, though? Isn't it just re-death?
It's just fixing your mistakes. Yeah. Their big plan, by the way, is to open the cellar door. Henry will distract the monster, while old as hell Waldman will jump out and poke it with a hypodermic needle full of sedatives, and surprisingly, it works. These two should work at the zoo. But as with everything in this movie, poor timing abounds, and there's a knock at the door. It's Victor, and he has a warning.
What's happening here? Elizabeth and your father are coming up the hill to see you. You must keep alarm. Too late.
Boundaries, people. Jesus Christ.
I mean, I know parents like to come over unannounced, but come on.
Dude, the 30s were a wild time. People just showing the fuck up unannounced and looking for your secret hose. Henry and Waldman stuff the drugged-up monster back into the cellar, and they let the Baron in, who's pissed as hell and just wants to bitch about the stairs.
Let's go and see what's up the awful stairs. I don't know how the deuce I'm going to get up a minute.
Up those stairs, Henry faints over the grief of Fritz and decides he needs to go home at once.
Oh, I thought he just stood up too fast.
Maybe.
What will happen to the records of my experiment?
We will preserve them.
And hell?
I will see that it is painlessly destroyed. Leave it all to me.
Meanwhile, Waldman takes the reins and decides he's gonna dissect the monster. The monster has other ideas.
Yeah, like still being alive, I guess.
The monster does his best Macho Man Randy Savage impression and chokes Waldman out, then casually strolls out the front door like he's going to brunch on Catalina Island. At the same time, Henry has apparently recovered from his bout of insanity at his father's estate. He chats with Elizabeth.
My work, those horrible days and nights. I couldn't think of anything else.
They collectively decide to forget the whole creating an abomination thing and decide instead to have a wedding.
Yeah, why not? I mean, that's...
logical. A giant wedding is pulled together in what seems like a day, but we can't celebrate too quickly now because the monster is drunk on a whole carafe of mimosas and he's touring the beautiful countryside village.
Oh my God.
To all of our delight, he comes upon a little girl playing with flowers by the lake.
I'm Maria. Will you play with me?
Maria's about to die.
Well, I know it's 1931, but stranger danger. Right? What happens next is really cute, actually. She plays with the monster and shows him how the flowers she picked can float.
Yeah.
The monster is fucking stoked. The look of pure joy on the monster's face really gives it some humanity, but being a base level human can only get you so far because he now assumes everything can float.
No, you're hurting me!
The monster tosses the girl into the lake, who, spoiler alert, can't fucking swim, and he dips out of there in a hurry.
Which is the cute part, right?
You thought it was the flower part?
No.
It's the murder part.
Yes.
Specifically.
Somebody's gonna call the cops on us.
It's true. Oh, God. But based on the monster's expression, he knows he fucked up, and I feel like he's looking for a literal rug to put over this entire situation.
Elizabeth, oh, how lovely you look.
I must see you for a minute.
As the wedding celebration rages on, Elizabeth comes to Henry to talk to him. She's worried that Dr. Waldman hasn't shown up yet because I guess they're close now? Like, that's not explained.
Suddenly she cares.
But did she ever consider that he's like 70 fucking years old and has to walk down an entire mountain?
No.
But also her worries are justified.
Henry! Dr. Waldman's been murdered in the tower.
Victor rushes in to tell him about Waldman's death, so Henry does the sensible thing and locks his bride in the room against her will. Just sorry. Click, click.
Henry,
They then hear an unmistakable grunt. The monster's in the house, Dave, and he's eating all the finger food.
How did he get inside already? And he better not touch the goddamn cake.
It's in the cellars.
They rush around looking for the monster, but I think they've underestimated how nimble this guy is.
He's like a big-ass ninja.
Seriously, I can't tell whether he just took his shoes off or did read the first edition of How to Be a Ninja for Idiots, because he sneaks into Elizabeth's room and walks up right behind her. The monster chases her around the room that she's fucking locked in until Henry has his mob break in. The monster's gone and she's fine, luckily.
Yay!
We're all so excited. The whole town is in an uproar now when the father of the little girl who the monster just fucking ring-tossed into the lake, you know, he carries her body through the village to the mayor.
Like a sack of potatoes.
Maria, she's drowned.
Why'd you bring her here to me?
She's been murdered.
How does he know?
I was gonna say, this is sad, but like, legit, how did you know she's murdered? I mean, she could have just been a bad swimmer and forgot her floaties, dude. We've all done it.
You've died?
Forgot my floaties, then died, revived, hence the flathead.
Got it.
But whatever, because Henry's main concern is his wedding.
There can be no wedding while this horrible creation of mine is still alive.
Now everyone in town puts their cocktails down, they rip the tiki torches from their backyards, and they head off to search for the monster.
It feels like in this moment, Henry Frankenstein yells, I brought you into this world, and I'll take you out!
Well, luckily, Henry does find him pretty quick.
Yeah, it's like a fun game of hide and seek and kill.
And as previously established, the monster is inspired by Macho Man Randy Savage, so he chokes Henry out, but not enough to kill him.
Right.
It's called tact.
He's learning.
The town sees the monster carrying Henry's body, so they follow him to an old windmill on top of a spooky hill. Inside, the monster lugs Henry's rich ass to the top and tosses his limp body off. Henry's body smacks the windmill blade like a sack of rice and falls to the ground.
Frankenstein, bring him down to the village and let's take him home.
He's still alive? How?
I don't know.
The man has to have a spine of a New York skyscraper. Now that the town has saved Henry, you know, the rich guy with daddy issues, the townspeople have one thing left to do.
Burn this motherfucker down, Pookie!
The monster looks down from the top of the mill in horror as the flames rise. He screams. Honestly, this part is really fucking sad, man. I'm not gonna lie. The screams from the monster on top of his, like, terrified expression and, like, his movements, this kind of messed me up a little bit, not gonna lie.
Yeah, I was like, man, are we about to watch this monster burn to death? Re-death?
Something. Like, the homie didn't ask to be born with a borked-ass brain. Finally, we pull back to see a haunting wide shot of the mill on fire atop the hill. This is where I think the movie should have ended, right? But we get one last scene.
Mm-hmm. If you please, Herr Baron, we thought that Mr. Henry could do with a glass of his great-grandmother's wine.
Mr. Henry doesn't need this. As I said before, I say again, here's to a son, to the house of Frankenstein.
Roll credits?
Wait, what?
Yeah.
Huh?
So in sum,
Wait,
crazy rich guy creates a monster, drives it crazy until it goes on a killing rampage, makes the whole town deal with it, and then he goes to sleep.
And his dad's like, fuck him, I'm drinking the wine.
I feel so much for the monster in this movie. It's crazy. Frankenstein sucks. His dad fucking sucks. Fritz sucks. I mean, it's a fucking tragedy, man.
And you got a flat head. I'm just saying.
But I really did like this movie. I think I'd seen it in full one time before, but it was a really great experience to watch it now. And like I said with The Wolfman, in great quality. It still looks great. The transfer of this was really, really great.
I enjoyed it a lot too. I didn't think I was gonna, again, like this movie, because I thought there's no way I like them both.
Right.
But I do. So that was fun and weird, and also I don't know how to feel about it.
No, I agree. It left me feeling a lot. It left me thinking a lot. It really stuck with me, and I immediately just wanted to keep watching more of these Universal movies.
Yeah.
And I know we've gone on and on about the dimensions of my fucked up head. But the gears inside are turning, Dave. And I think I really want to talk about these together, these two movies.
You know what? It's Halloween. Let's do it.
This is going to be a tough Thunderdome. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, I was looking forward to it, but now I can't stop thinking about your flat head.
Well, I guess we'll decide if I'm going to get reanimated or turn into a furry.
Maybe both.
Movie versus movie. Welcome to the Thunderdome. This place fucking rules.
Alrighty, Dave, we're back in the Thunderdome, and I need to shave.
Huh?
I'm hairy!
No, I'm hairy. You have a flat head.
Oh, that's why I thought I was hairy, because my brain is broken. So before we watch these movies, Dave, you and we decide on 5 things that we both agree make a good genre movie.
Fuck yeah.
In this case, Universal monster movies.
Halloween.
They're
it's
Oh,
Halloween.
God. Number 1, we need an iconic movie monster.
Are all these fuckers in the Halloween lore?
Number 2, we need a classic origin story.
We know them from the Monster Mash, yeah?
Number 3, we need a troubled main character or characters.
Hey, everyone knows only to take one candy from the bowl.
Number 4, we need frightening makeup effects.
You dressed up, right?
And finally, number 5, we need enduring horror.
Don't you dare give trick-or-treaters fruit.
So I gotta say, man, if there's one thing Frankenstein has locked down, it's the iconic movie monster. Frankenstein's monster, the version that specifically originated from this movie, is recognizable to everyone, including most children here in the year 2022, 90 plus years later.
Right.
His look is nothing like Mary Shelley's source novel. It was artist Jack Pierce who designed the look with his flat head, based off me. I think Frankenstein's monster, though, will live on in pop culture forever.
Yeah, I'm not going to disagree with you because that would be podcast suicide. So what I will say, though, the Wolfman is not only iconic in movies, he's iconic in just culture in general because everyone has heard of werewolves, thanks in big part to this movie, The Wolfman. Werewolves are one of the OG monsters in film and scary stuff history, right alongside vampires and, I guess, Frankenstein's monster.
So my only issue with that, I think The Wolfman brought to pop culture a lot of the lore we associate with werewolves, but I don't think it was a new idea that people had never heard of or seen before. I don't see people out dressing up like this specific Wolfman.
Well, listen, shut up. So,
I mean, do you have any counterpoint to that?
Classic Blake trying to use logic. Speaking of classic origin stories is our next point. Now, everyone knows that werewolves turn because of full moons. That's just what it is. Well, maybe not everyone, because the werewolf seemed to turn whenever he got stressed out about something.
It's just the autumn moon, according to this movie.
So I'm not actually sure if this movie got the classic origin story right. But it seemed to add on ways to kill the werewolf as if they couldn't afford a dagger or a gun.
They teased us out with a lot of ways to kill werewolves and just stuck with the old man cane. Anyway,
yeah, right.
I think a lot of the moonlight and stuff, that came from some of the sequels in terms of the pop culture references. So yeah, you're kind of at a disadvantage there. But the origin of Frankenstein's monster, I think, runs completely in tandem with his iconography. This movie created a cliche for a reason, right? It's the mad scientist in his lab with beakers and tubes and electricity flying everywhere, only to bring his creation to life, plus the line, "It's alive, it's alive." Everyone knows that.
Yeah.
No matter how stupid it sounds. But all I'm saying is that this film popularized so many things, and I think audiences to this day still recognize it from that. And I say that would firmly land it in classic territory.
Pains me to agree, but I do.
These are two very strong points right off the bat for Frankenstein. But what is less helpful, I think, to this movie in general is its troubled main characters. I do think that all the characters in Frankenstein are assholes, except for the monster, but Henry Frankenstein is particularly troubled. He's fallen into such an obsession, he essentially abandons his wife-to-be for his assistant in a cellar full of corpses. I don't think someone this troubled would realistically snap out of it so quick either. But alas, he does, only to have to deal with his creation coming back to literally destroy him. So I think it's a compelling character arc, short of the fact that he survived.
I will say the only thing that sucks for your argument there is that he does snap out of it. That felt very weird.
Yeah.
But in The Wolfman, Larry is a textbook run from your problems kind of guy. He left the Talbot Castle as a kid and went to go do his own thing just to come right back when he realized how important money is, I guess. I don't know his real reasons for coming back or even leaving, but he for sure is troubled in the sense that he's a fucking stalker.
Yeah.
Okay, fine. His actions may have been acceptable in the 40s, but I still don't like him.
It's not cool, dude. I don't think this is acceptable in the 40s. I think this is a prime example of media making it okay for people in the 40s to be fucking creepy.
He's got a soapbox.
Oh, here we go. All right, listen. Let me tell you how women should feel.
Please hold for technical difficulties.
We'll be coming back to reality in 400 hours.
Oh, shit. You know what? I think you're right. Either way, time period or not, his actions are frightening.
Oh, I see what you're doing.
You get it? Frightening makeup effects. I was actually shocked at how awesome the makeup looked in this movie. And it was all practical, obviously. And I think it looked really good and spooky. I mean, the fur, the teeth, the fact that he's 9'10", you know, everything looked really great, in my opinion.
Yeah, and like I think we can both agree on the fact that not many people are legitimately frightened by these makeup effects anymore, you know. But I would argue that the makeup on Frankenstein's monster does hold up. You know, it's mildly hokey, but it still looks great on camera and sells as a disjointed human quilt made by a blind grandmother. With the performance given by Boris Karloff, it's still got an emotional response out of me.
Yeah.
And so I don't find the Wolfman effects to hold up as much, but I think it still did the trick in the way it was lit, and especially the scenery, the spooky forest stuff. I think it does work. So I was happy with both of these makeup effects.
I am a little surprised that these effects have lasted throughout the years.
If you want to talk about things lasting, I think we can pretty easily move into our next point, which is enduring horror. I think it's easy to write off these old films as schlocky, you know, but when you dig into the message that Frankenstein is sending, I'd argue it's still horrifying. And like, for me, horror doesn't just mean like, boo, scary. Like, horror is a larger term that I think encompasses a lot for a film genre. I know I was joking around like earlier, you know, about this, but think about Frankenstein's monster. It's unfair and heartbreaking and scary to think that we're all kind of like that too. You know, we're brought into this world without our consent. We have to learn from whatever environment we're born into. Nobody fully understands you. Yet they get on their fucking high horses when you murder a few children. I just think this film has a lot to say, and it left me feeling pretty horrible, honestly, in the existential sense.
Yeah, I didn't expect that to happen, but I thought this was going to be a tough one because the movie's 80 years old. But not really, because the visuals in the woods, right? The weird fortune teller lady combined with the werewolf, all just kind of spooky in and of its own. But you throw into the fact that a father's denial of what's actually going on with his son creates the situation for him to accidentally murder his son.
Yeah.
But I also only added that on the end because you got so dark in yours, and I was like, man, mine looked kind of spooky.
But I am glad we watched these movies, and I do think they both have a lot to say. I thought the horror in The Wolfman was good, too. You know, the werewolf metaphor can speak to duality in people's certain wants and being pulled in different ways, and I think that's still relatable.
Oh, yeah, I agree.
I feel like I could talk about these for a while, because they are old, but they do have a lot to say, but I feel like at this point, my brain is equally... I was going to say borked, but my brain is flat as well.
Yeah.
Your brain might be flat at this point, so...
Penis-shaped.
Well, let's take our phallic brains and drag them across the finish line.
Drag our brain balls across the finish line.
Oh, no.
Hey, look, we did it. It's the finish line. We're at the finish line. Can I go home yet? All right.
All right, Davey boy. In the long-standing tradition of the last few episodes of you going first.
Yeah.
Let's have you go first again.
Fuck, all right. I'm going to be honest with you. I had no idea where my brain was going to land in terms of what I was going to pick. Even going into us talking about it, I had no idea what I was going to pick.
Oh, that's fair. That's interesting.
But now I think I'm just going to go with my gut. I think I'm going to have to go with Frankenstein because in general, the Wolfman feels like Frankenstein's annoying sidekick. He's playing second fiddle for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, we didn't even know the Wolfman was really a movie. At least I didn't until we fucking decided we were picking these. So
yeah.
I kind of have to go with Frankenstein.
That's totally fair. And for me, I've seen the Wolfman before. I think I saw it before I ever saw Frankenstein, which I didn't see till I was a little older. And so I have more of a nostalgia with the Wolfman. It's a fun movie, and I had a really good time. And even though Larry is a fucking creep, but none of the main characters in either of these movies are really great. I found myself attaching more to the monsters in both of these movies, so I think that's a pretty great feat of filmmaking, especially for so long ago. But in terms of my relationship with the monsters, I am also going to have to go with Frankenstein. It feels classic.
Yeah.
It feels big. Like, we don't see a ton necessarily in the movie, but the scope of the narrative feels huge. It feels like it has impact. And like I said in my Thunderdome, it stuck with me a lot. And the performance from Boris Karloff was heartbreaking.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so sad.
Blake!
I feel like we're on the same page again, Dave. Back to our Halloween roots. God love us both.
And honestly, I'm a little relieved because if we hadn't agreed, we were fucked on finding anybody that has watched both these movies.
Actually, I think it was my call, and I did have somebody ready to go.
Oh, well, fuck you then. So, all in all, I think we came to the right conclusion. I don't think that you can really say that the Wolfman is better than Frankenstein. I think Frankenstein would have pummeled the shit out of the Wolfman, if we're being honest.
Oh, yeah, he's giant and, like, made of different people, who one of which might have been strong as shit. I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway, Dave, I'm going to eat a fucking mouthful of Necco wafers and roll around in my Watchtower castle.
And I am going to lament at how much fur I have.
Probably should shave. This episode's sponsored by Dollar Shave Club.
Hey, First Prize listeners, thanks for tuning in on this Halloween episode. Thanks for killing these monsters with us. If you enjoyed this episode, if you enjoyed hearing us go back to the scary basics, consider subscribing to our socials. It's at First Prize Pod on all platforms, and that includes Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. We're on TikTok and YouTube as well. Also, don't forget to check out our website. It's firstprizefilms.com.
We do this for free because we've sold all the corpses in my closet to medical schools. But if you'd like to support us, consider rating and reviewing us on Apple Podcasts, or come hang out on Twitch. We stream every week talking about movies, having some laughs, and chatting with all of you.
Join us next week as we steal our way back to non-scary movies with these heist films.
We're talking about Baby Driver 2017 versus Gone in 60 seconds. Gone in 60 seconds, 2000.
Oh my god, it's gonna be real cagey.
Oh, hey, I like that. All right.
Yeah, we're gonna need a driver who's also maybe a baby.
Okay, and we'll be stuck in the hospital for more than 60 seconds because we'll have horrible head trauma. Wait, I lost it.
See ya!
Bye! Also, can we revisit your metaphor about the frat guy at a book club? What?
Well, you know, like he went to his girlfriend's book club and got too drunk. Now they had to carry him home.
Okay.
It was annoying.
Okay. Okay. Frat guy, book club, girlfriend, drunk. It tracks. I'm good with it. All right.
Okay, great. Now that I've had to explain my joke,